It really is great to see you all. And at the right at the start of the academic year, 23-24, can we believe it? I hope you all had a wonderful summer. So this is the kick-off session for Women at Manchester. It's a welcome back from us all, and it's an in conversation with our network. So what we've got planned for this session today is to myself as one of the co-chairs last year, and Adele McKinley, the other co-chair, says hello and welcome back as well, but unfortunately can't be with us this morning. We're going to be reaffirming the aims of the network. We're also really delighted to be able to introduce our two new co-chairs, Emma Shiels and Lynn Marr, and I will allow them to introduce themselves in a moment. And then they're going to ask me questions, really hard questions, which I've had, really made me think about why this network is so important to me, to Manchester, why I'm so passionate about gender equality and supporting women's careers. And then I'm going to ask them questions, which is brilliant. And I can't wait to hear about them and their stories and why they have stepped forward as co-chairs. And then most importantly, you're going to be able to ask any questions or raise things that you want to talk about in this session today. So that's the format for the session. So I will introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name's Rachel Cowan. I'm a professor in biology, medicine and health. I'm also the university's academic lead for equality, diversity and inclusion, and with a specific focus on gender and sexual orientation equality. So I will pass over to Emma to introduce herself.
Thanks, Rachel. So my name's Emma Shiels. I started at the university last year. However, I was a student here for 3 years. I did a law degree. I'm currently an institute administrator for the Productivity Institute. They do research into productivity in the UK. I found that I really enjoyed the event planning and organisation aspects of my role. So that's why I became the co-chair. I thought that I could the network could really use someone like me. Specifically, there's a lot of academic members, and I thought it'd be great to have a professional services aspect of it. So that's me.
Wonderful. We definitely need you. Super. And Lynn Marr, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. My name is Lin. I'm a lecturer in chemical engineering, and I have been in the University of Manchester for quite long. It's already 10 years because I started as a student and then postdoc and research fellow and a lecturer. I'm so excited to join this kind of staff network as Women in Manchester, and I'm excited to take the roles of academic co-chair. I think it's very, very important to having the voice to be heard, our women's voice to be heard by the whole university, because we're having so many difficulties as women, and I hope that we're having this kind of network to help each other to making our voice maximum. Yeah, thank you.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Lynn Marr, and we are really lucky to have both you and Emma. So we, at the start of this academic year, really wanted to come together to, as I say, reaffirm the aims of the network and reflect on those and whether they're right and fit for purpose for you and for the university. So what's the network all about? Well, we want it to be as inclusive as possible, open to all colleagues, staff and students who are women or who identify as women from across all parts of our university and in all roles and at all levels in the organisation. So the network is about creating a group who can learn from, work with and support each other with respect to our careers and our lives more generally as well, whilst also continuing to accelerate gender equity across the university. And as Lynn Marr rightly points out, really accelerate progress to address the challenges that we do face. So having reaffirmed the aims, and please feel free to put things into the chat, maybe to introduce yourself as well as we have done, and think about what you want from the network. I'm going to pass over to our new co-chairs who are going to interrogate me. I'm quite frightened by this little bit now.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for the introduction, and thank you so much for finding this kind of create this group for us to having the platform for everyone. So the first questions I'm going to ask you is, as a founder, how why did you feel the Manchester needed such of the network for women, and why did you want to create this kind of platform for us?
Thank you. Yeah, that was a really interesting question to reflect on. And I'm really clear that, we already had lots of vibrant and active groups that supported women in the institution. So, if I give an example, that, the Cancer Sciences Women's Network, there's engineering and research women's networks. But I felt, and so did Adele, that what we needed was an all-encompassing women's network that was inclusive of all. And that was importantly part of the university's equality, diversity and inclusion governance structure. And it would sit alongside the other big network groups. So we have the disability network group, we have the Black, Asian and minority ethnic group, and the LGBTQ plus group, and the women's network sits alongside those. And it's a really important mechanism by which the university can understand and hear the experiences of women across the institution, and then respond and make sure that we have the right infrastructure, policy, practice and culture to support everybody.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
So my question for you is, did you encounter any issues or problems with setting up the Women's Network?
So this is not a cop-out, but we actually didn't. So we have had nothing but support for this network. The energy from everyone that we've spoken to initially about the idea and everyone who's subsequently been involved and stepped forward has been amazing. From the communications people who've helped and supported, people who've helped and supported the large-scale events, to the inspiring speakers, both internal and external, who've been women and also men and allies. Everyone's been so eager to be involved, which is really lucky. Made mine and Adele's life much easier. That said, it would not be possible without the wonderful administrative support of Nicola Summers and Kathy Bradley and the EDI team members. So I want to give a shout out for them, and the Women's Network will have that continued support. And I also should have said that Adele and I, although we're stepping back as co-chairs, we aren't stepping out. And we are there as senior sponsors for Emma and Lynn Marr. And so, we'll be hopefully very visible and engaged and active through this network.
Brilliant, thank you. And I totally agree about Nicola and Kathy as well. They've been absolutely fantastic administrators. This whole session wouldn't have even happened without them. So yeah, again, I want to extend my thanks as well to them. My next question would be, what are your passions and what drew you to becoming a co-chair?
So I'm just going to maybe touch very briefly on my own career history. So I came here as a student, as a PhD student. There was very little peer support, professional development opportunity. It was get in, do your cancer research project, deliver on that in terms of the science and outputs to advance cancer research. And that was great. But there were times at which I struggled. Similarly, I then moved into a postdoctoral research position, and again felt very isolated at times. And I then transitioned into a research and development role. Some money came in from the government, from the UK RI, and essentially allowed me to develop a programme to support researchers. And what I noticed was that there were a wonderful, diverse mix, many women within that community at the early career stage. But then when I then looked at people who progressed, maybe people who fell out of the system, the talent we lost, I started to recognise the inequities and some of and particularly for women, who were balancing family life, work life. And then I noticed it across all areas, not just for researchers, for academics, for professional services. And that's why I really got involved in the equality work in Athena Swan, which is our charter mark, an action plan to progress gender equality, and that exists across the UK higher education sector. So then I just met so many wonderfully fantastic women and have had so much personal satisfaction and work reward from seeing their careers progress. And so that's why I know that a network like this and having that peer support through a network like this is so important.
Thank you.
Yeah, During last years, I know you and Angel has already organized so many exciting programs and so many exciting events, like monthly seminars and the conferences and everything. So reflecting on this kind of previous event, what do you think you have enjoyed during all these kind of activities?
So I particularly enjoy meeting new people and old people, and hearing about how things are going with them, and also hearing about other people's career journeys. And what I've found through the network is people are honest, candid, open. They've shared their stories really generously. We've had some really senior women leaders, and they've really shared warts and all journeys with us, and stories about self-belief and not having the affirmation that they could step up to a role, but then just going for things and making it work and being brilliant in those roles. And it's given me the confidence to think, yeah, I'm not going to self-limit myself. I am going to step forward. I am going to be brave. And also, other people conversely have said that they've said no to things. They've said they're not going to go for things, and and they've reflected on what's important for them across all of life. And so it's also okay not to go for things. So I've really enjoyed hearing those career stories. I also particularly like coming together for the celebration event, sharing Prosecco and cake after that 1 year of the network's existence, and meeting so many new and re-establishing face-to-face contact with so many women from all areas of the university.
Thank you so much. That sounds really interesting, and I hope you enjoyed so much, and hope you will still enjoy the event coming in the next year. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. My question for you would be, what do you want to see for the future of this network?
So I know the future of the network is definitely bright with the two of you as incoming co-chairs. You're going to bring new ideas and insights, energy, new people into the network. I'd like to see the numbers grow exponentially, in fact. I'd like to see the mechanisms for peer support and mentorship through the network to be maybe more formalised, and we've chatted about that a little bit. And I'm looking forward to still being a key part of the network. I have ideas around the creation of subgroups for different career stages and pathways. I've been approached by some newly promoted professors, for example, who would like to see a subgroup there. So yeah, lots of hopes for the future. And I'm looking forward to see what you as network members want to see as well. And please share that with us, and particularly with Emma and Linmar.
Yeah, that sounds really great. We are looking forward to the future of the network too. So my next question will be probably the last questions. You have shared so many your personal experience and for your career and also for the network itself. I'm wondering, do you have some further stories and interesting things or whatever you want to share with us?
So I just got lots of stories. I'm going to share those hopefully when I meet many of you face to face and also in future sessions. But I just wanted to really reflect back and thank really an incredible advocate of mine, and we all need advocates and champions, and so that would be my main message that I'd want you to take away from this small section. But there was a wonderful senior woman leader called Catherine Pereira. She was one of our first female PVCs. She met me. I was a researcher. I was insignificant potentially in the organisation, but she always had time for people, and she was the one who opened the doors for me into Athena Swan gender equality work. So I suppose she's a role model for me. She started Athena Swan in the university. I like to think back and reflect on people who've been role models. I then like to hope that I'm giving back now and doing the same as she did for me. And hopefully we will all do that for each other across the network.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. I really want to thank you for sharing so much experience and all the interesting things to us. So, shall we move to the next session?
Now it's my go. So, I get to ask you questions. So I'll ask you, Lynn, what drew you to the role? I know that you've started to articulate that, but if you want to expand on that, that would be great.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, well, I noticed this network. I think it's really interesting and very important platform for us to getting together, because I have, as I mentioned, I have been in the Manchester for 10 years and having so many difficulties when I was a student, as a postdoc, and a research fellow and a lecturer. So there are many things, particular some of the difficulties that everyone is facing, but some of them are really just women we need to face too. For example, I had 2 maternity leaves, one is during my postdoc and one is during my research fellow, and both of them, my postdoc and the research fellow roles are fixed term. So having a maternity leave, it caused difficulty for myself in the career development, and also for my lab manager won't be happy with me to taking a long-term leave. So this is one example of the difficulties, and this kind of difficulties we can only get support or understand from women. And so that is why I think this kind of network is really important, and I hope to be part of them, because I have already go through this and have some experience to share, and I also have patience to helping people or getting people together, although some difficulties are not faced by myself, and I'm not having this kind of challenging, but I'm really interested to helping people, to group people together and having this kind of network. So that is one of the major reasons I'm hoping to join at this role. Yeah.
That's brilliant, and we absolutely know we've got work to do to make this a culture that can support people, particularly when they have families, and that, you know, that work-life balance is there as well. So fabulous motivation. Emma, same question to you. What drew you to the role?
So when I first started at the university last year, I had little confidence. In my previous firm that I'd worked in as a case manager, where I was, well, my end goal was to be a solicitor. Unfortunately, I had experienced work-based harassment, and this is a sad topic to talk about, but I'm going to share my experience, because I think part of being in this women's network is we should share experiences and we should learn from them. So unfortunately, before I started at Manchester, I'd experienced work-based harassment. When I brought the evidence to my manager, he basically said he didn't think that this man would behave like this. So his thoughts were more valuable than my experience, my evidence, etc. So I felt really isolated. There were no networks in the previous firm. There was no support for myself when I was experiencing this. And when I came to Manchester, I felt very still isolated, until I got told about this women's network. I got told about campus sport, so women in sport, there's netball, football, etc. I felt when I came to Manchester, more doors were opening for me, rather in the previous role, they were being shut in my face. There were loads of opportunities for networking. And the one experience that really stood out to me last year, before I was the co-chair for this network, was this network put on a photographer event. So women were being pictured for the Wall of Women for the International Women's Week. And I got my picture taken, my headshot taken. And when I finally saw myself in this picture, I looked so confident and so happy. And I felt like this network had given me my voice back. I felt like far more confident, more professional. And I really wanted to get involved, because I'd just been given such a gift from this network. So what drew me to this role was how specifically valuable and tailored to women the events that they were putting on. And I thought that I could use my skills as an event planner, organizer, and general admin skills to really push this network for more engagement. And so far, it's given me such a good sense of purpose. So that would be what drew me to the role.
Thank you for sharing that really, difficult time that you've had. I'm so pleased that the network's had such an impact already for you.
Yeah.
And you know, very pertinent if anyone's been looking at the news, you know, and, you know, we know that there's a societal issue and it's not going away. It's highly prevalent in terms of discrimination, harassment, violence against women. And we know it exists in our institution as well, through support and support. So we're not burying our head in the sand, and we will face difficult issues head on through this network, as well as have great fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next question is around, I'm going to jump to the special interest one, if that's okay. So Lynn Marr, can I ask what your special interests are for this network?
Yeah, as an academic co-chair, I'm really hoping we can getting together some academics, female academics, go together and trying to encourage everyone to share their stories and helping each other, and also helping our students as well. So there is something observation I have been done before. So while I was a PhD student in Manchester, I did geology in the Earth Science Department of Earth Science, and over all the students, we have even more women students than male students. But then, as academic in that department, we have probably over 10 academic staff, but only one women, so which is very interesting. I feel like academic, I'm not sure if there's a problem from a student who becomes academic as women, or maybe there's some difficulties just for women to be academic. I'm hoping in this kind of role, we are creating some of the environment to helping people to overcome all these kind of issues they probably faced during academic career journals. And that is one of the things I'm very keen to work on. And also as an academic staff, you know, if we want to doing our work, and we're having 4 kind of criteria or 4 areas we're working on: for teaching, for research, for knowledge transfer, for the service. And each of them, we're having many, probably some experience we want to share with others, or maybe some of the difficulties we want to seek for advice from others. So this is another thing I'm really interested to create, or whatever, helping people in different criteria, helping us to having develop and also promote or whatever in the future. So that is specific things. Oh, another thing is, as I mentioned, as academic staff, we're facing students every day, and I hope there are many women students who probably need help from academic staff, and that is something we can develop as well, as academic staff, how we can help women students in their studies, their career development, or just helping with their personal or life or whatever. So that is especially interesting for me. Yeah, thank you.
That's brilliant, Lynn Marr. And yeah, through the network, we really will understand the different experiences of women academics and students, and why we're making such slow progress on the academic pipeline. You know, it's less than 1% increase in women at senior level on the academic pathway annually. So we've got to do better. And through this network, we really will understand what our community need, and you know, where we should be focusing and prioritizing our efforts. Emma, same question to you. What are your special interests for the network?
Okay, so for me personally, I'm a professional services staff. I think the majority of professional services staff are women in terms of percentage wise. So my special interest would be to maybe tailor more experiences with this network to professional services staff. I think we have a lot of, for example, women in cancer research or women in tech sort of groups that are already established. And I think maybe I'd see more of a middle of the road type roles going forward. My specific special interest would probably be women in sport. I absolutely love women's football. I was there at the Euros final in 2022 when we won, and it was probably one of those like empowering, confident things I've ever experienced in my life. I know that the campus offers lots of staff networks, campus sports, for example, netball, rugby, football. Last year I played for a Division 2 netball team called the Scarlet Bees, and I think that was a fantastic way to meet people. So my special interest for this role would be sports. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Come on, England women. Okay, so the next question is, what things do you want to see the network doing going forward? Or you can interpret that question on what do you want to see the university doing for women going forward? However you want to interpret the question. I'll go to Emma first this time.
So going forward, specifically with this network, I'd like to see maybe more peer support. I think we've discussed it a bit. I think we're still in the initial stages of figuring out how that would work. I think I'd like to see more engagement. I think we'd like to mobilise our volunteers a bit more. Specifically, hopefully we can put on a very interesting programme of events this next year. And going forward, maybe the university, or we could look more into, for example, I know a lot of staff or women staff over 40 work part-time, just physically for raising their own children. And I think there's barriers to promotion and barriers to accessing the higher level, like higher grade jobs, just purely because of the practicalities of having to raise children. So I think going forward, if we could look for more peer support in terms of women who have children and how they can access these higher grades, that would be fantastic. So that would be my personal, what I want to see going forward from the network.
That's brilliant, Emma, because one of the anecdote I didn't tell was a negative anecdote around working part-time. With two small boys, and my line manager saying, when I asked about promotion and maybe what I needed to do to work towards it, I was told I couldn't have it all and I'd prioritise my family. And I want to make sure that those conversations are nipped in the bud. And sometimes if people only have the line manager, they just take that and they believe it, and then they just put their head down and are very demotivated. And this network can absolutely prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
So same question to you, Lynn-Mar, then. What do you want to see going forward?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Emma for most of the things that she has mentioned, because the peer support is most important things to having in this network. So I think for the future, I think we are working on two kind of parallel lines. One is where, of course, we'll invite some of the successful people or just some people from us network to tell their stories, so everyone can learn from them, or maybe having some hear different stories from each other. And this is one thing, but the other thing is we are really hoping to having the many subgroups or many things from different people for different need. So some of the difficulties or some of the need probably we haven't identified for now, because commonly we all know, for example, maternity leaves and some children cares, also our period, monthly period or whatever. So these are some of the common things we know. So we can set up some small groups for specific need. But there are some many other things probably we haven't realized yet. So we're hoping we can having some like Emma mentioned, if we have some volunteers, or maybe we have some voice being heard. And if you're having something difficulties or some of the challenges you're facing, you're hoping to having a small network, or like just a very small group of people. And please let us know, and then we can try to find specific groups and for each other. So I think if we keep in doing small groups plus big groups and clear stories and two parallel lines, and can be very interesting. And this is how we see from the future. And also because we are such a big number for now, and probably if we're having some voice can be heard from university, if everyone facing many problems, and we can just reflect this to the universities. If we're having promotion problem or we're having some gender problems, and the university will hear us because we're such a big group. So that is something we are hoping we can work on, and hoping everyone can doing this together, and to make our platform useful and helpful for everyone.
That's brilliant. Absolutely. A voice. And actually a channel both ways, upwards and so on. Great. So the last question, Would you like to tell any personal stories or anecdotes to the network relating to gender equity, Emma?
So this isn't specific to the university. It's just something that happened to me whilst I was on holiday a few weeks ago. So I was in Paris during the Women's World Cup, and obviously we reached the final on the Sunday in which I was supposed to be flying home. And in Paris, obviously in England, we have a sports culture. You can walk into a pub and probably ask them to put whatever sports you want on and they'll play it. But in Paris, it's very different. And I had to find an Irish bar because they were playing football. And the owner of the bar seemed to think that the West Ham versus Aston Villa game, men's game, was probably going to draw a bigger crowd than the Women's World Cup final. So I came in and I said, are you going to put the football on? And he was like, who's playing the women? And he was like, oh, England, oh, and Spain, oh. And I said to him, I was like, right, there's definitely going to be a bigger crowd for the Women's World Cup final, and we both win. So if I'm wrong, you can have a right good laugh at me, and if you're wrong, you're going to have hundreds of people coming into your bar, well, dozens of people coming into your bar, and you're going to make loads of money. So I made him go outside and write in chalk Women's World Cup final on the board outside. And I tell you, loads of young girls started trickling in. I think every English woman who was in that area in Paris at the time came into the bar. Like, they just stumbling around like, England are playing? And I was like, yes. And I got to meet so many different women. I got to meet women from Australia. There was a Spanish area of the bar playing it and an English area of the bar. And it was just fantastic. The pub was filled with women from all over the world. And we made friends with these New Zealand girls, and it was just fantastic. And obviously we lost, and the owner did laugh at me, and I had to kind of put my hand over my head. But I think that it's just, I'm seeing the tide sort of turning a bit, and women's football being put on, more attention that it needs. And I think that once you give it the platform and it was written in chalk, once you give it the advertisement, the platform, people will come and watch it. And that's just my personal anecdote. And it was a fantastic day where we were all crying and laughing and screaming with just a bunch of strangers. So Kathy's just put in the chat, what did the bar owner say? He basically kind of laughed at me and said no one was going to watch it. And I basically said, please put it on and I'll prove you wrong. And you can have a good old laugh at me if I am wrong. Hardly anyone's in here, anyway. No one's going to come in and watch West Ham in Paris, are they? But yeah, that's what the bar owner said. And at the end, he was just pointing and laughing at me when we lost. But it was still a fantastic experience. But yeah.
Surprised he didn't offer you a job. Marketing and communications, and we'll skirt over the loss. Lynn, what about you?
I'm going to tell a little bit of story about related to my career. And I was associate editor of the journal called Marine and Petroleum Geology. So that is a traditional geological journal, because which is interesting is traditionally geology is kind of mine area, because you need a lot of field work and you need like muscle carry samples and go to the field and do a lot of work over there. But there are more and more female people enjoying this kind of subject. And when I was a associate editor, there were probably over 50 associated editor over there. Majority of them are just men, and only two of us are women. And then there was opportunities to be promoted to a section editor, which is only like 4 of them to be this. And of course, many of us submitted our applications. And I'm not too sure if my gender helped me a little bit on this as well. And during a lot of like applications and interviews, whatever, I mentioned, because we are trying to increase the number of the associated editor if I become the section editor, because we're just having more and more female people in this area, and probably that is one of the small reasons I become promoted to the section editor. So one saying this is sometimes in the man dominated areas, as women we need to make our voice maximum, and this is sometimes can help our career development as well. Yeah, that's what.
No, that's brilliant, and rightly so. Journals, funders, and research are trying to address the lack of parity that we've had up to this point. You didn't get preferential treatment. You were rightly visible and promoted through the process. So those are all of our questions. We want to, and there's some wonderful comments and ideas actually for the future of the network, and things that people would like to see, and things actually aligned with the work we're doing as part of Athena Swan. Certainly, we're raising issue of sexual consent and increased training for staff and students in that area, and we'll promote that through the network as well. But over to you. So please, people on the call, if you want to speak, you can. If you want to put questions to Emma and Lynn or myself, or make any comments. Put your hand up if you want to speak, or we can wait for comments in the chat.
I'm reading the chat if there's already some questions over there.
There's lots of really positive comments, and thank you for sharing your stories. And Nicola rightly pointing out the power of storytelling, and we would love for everybody in the network to be able at some point or through some mechanism to share their story. I don't think there are any specific questions yet.
I've got one if that's okay, if nobody else has
please,
just yet. So thank you. Do you know what I love? It's just lovely to hear hear everybody's, to read the chat, to listen to what ideas people have and how, how different we all are, and how, how we've got, there's an underlying agenda, isn't there? But there's people coming at it from all sorts of different directions, which is so key. And I think that's the, that's the beauty of storytelling as well, isn't it? When we can all, share our experiences and things around different aspects. So I suppose it's with that in mind. So Kathy mentioned in the chat, we've had some conversations recently about intersectionality and how we collaborate with other networks across the university, how we listen to other people, how we take other people's views into account from different lenses. Just wondering what your thoughts are around that, if you've got any ideas of how we could do that. I'm quite a practical person, and it's like, I like a good tick list. So if there's any, if there's anything practical that you think we can be doing, and that's to any of you really, if any of you want to answer that.
I can jump in and say what we already do, Nicola, because people might not know.
Okay.
So we have, every year, we have a staff network day where we come together, all the big staff networks, and we promote what each of us are doing, and that's a real fertile ground to share commonalities and differences, and understand that intersectional perspective. So that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe there are many people in our group, and also belongs to some other groups, because they're having this common areas or whatever. And I think this is important if we work with other networks, because we can learn experience from others if they have a very successful experience. And also we can work together just to make sure everyone can be useful. Every single event or something can be useful for others as well. And I think it's just very important to work with other network. I believe Emma and I, with help of Rachel and Dale, we are trying to work more and more and to join other networks and organize all the activities together, and to having the interactions and peer support for each of the network. Yeah, I think that is really important point. You point out. Yeah.
Thanks, Lynn. Emma, have you got anything to add? Sorry, Rachel.
Oh no, go, Nicola.
I don't have anything specific that Rachel and Lynn haven't also just said, other than I think that hopefully we've not released the upcoming events yet, but hopefully we can include intersectionality in the upcoming events, and they'll be communicated, I think, in the first week of October. But yeah.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, and I think some people are putting some stuff in the chat, and I think they're going to share it in the women's team space as well, which is good, you know, with our network team space. So anything, I think I'd encourage the group as a whole to share things like that in there, and then we can be sharing it on with our teams and things, can't we? So get the message out. I think Julie's just put a message in there as well about sharing something. So thank you.
Yeah, so already just through this short conversation today, we've been able to raise awareness of other groups really relevant and pertinent to women, and Kathy's kindly put the links in there, and also to our zero tolerance of bullying, harassment and discrimination, on our report and support system of anonymous reporting and support that we can all as staff and students benefit from. And it is available and should be more visible through the posters for the Safe Zone app, which are all over. Every time I go into the car park at work, I see it, but then what's missing is the link to report and support, and stamping out that behaviour in our institution. Kathy.
I was just thinking about saying about Aurora as well.
That's a wonderful idea.
The comments about PS women not being able to progress and get leadership.
And Mavish has made a request for more sessions and ideas on how you can progress and develop your career, and how you navigate the structures and processes through to senior leadership. And one of the key mechanisms through which we're trying to support women to senior leadership level and develop leadership capacity is through Aurora. So that's a national women's leadership program run by Advance HE. It's had over 8,000 alumni on that program, and we've had 122 women who've been through that program from Manchester, and we've been tracking their career destinations, and we know it makes an impact. I am an Aurora alumni, so what we are, and we have actually got a session planned. Emma and Lynn Marr have put together an event for in a couple of months' time, where we're going to launch the open call for the Aurora program for new participants for the 2024 cohort. And you will also be able to hear about the data showing the positive impact on women's progression, and meet some of the alumni who are, from across the university, both professional services and academic, teaching and research staff. So that's a session that's coming up, so watch this space.
Yeah, I think Emma and I were planning on this, and perhaps the event will happen, the Aurora things will happen in December. So we'll send out all the details when everything is confirmed, and hope everyone can come and discuss on this. That is really important, interesting.
Yeah. So I don't think there are any more questions, just some wonderful ideas and suggestions and links in the chat, which we will save and get out to you. I don't know, Emma and Lynn, if you've got any closing thoughts or perspective. Make sure you're all on the Teams chat, but just check in with you as co-chairs as I step back and become your senior sponsor.
So I will say thank you so much for you and Adele and the work that you've done setting it up, and I'm really excited to see where the network goes. And also thank you all for coming today, and yeah.